My family never once sat by my grandmother's hospital bed. Not one time in 14 months. Not my mother, not my father, not my older sister who lived 20 minutes from the hospital and drove past it every single day on her way to work. I was the only one who showed up, and I didn't know it yet. But that single fact was about to rewrite everything I thought I understood about who really loved her. My name is Danielle. I was 28 years old the year my grandmother Ruth got sick, working as a home health aide while I finished night classes for a nursing degree I'd been chipping away at for 6 years. I wasn't the golden child. That title belonged to my sister Vanessa, who worked in corporate marketing downtown and drove a car that cost more than my entire year's salary. My parents talked about Vanessa at every dinner, every holiday, every family gathering, the way some people talk about the weather, constantly, effortlessly, like it was the only subject worth discussing. My mother kept a framed photo of Vanessa's promotion ceremony on the mantle. There was no photo of me anywhere in that house, but my grandmother never made me feel like the lesser granddaughter. Ruth had grown up with nothing in a small town in Georgia before moving north as a young woman, worked 2 jobs while raising 4 children on her own after my grandfather passed young, and eventually built a quiet fortune through a hair salon business that grew into 3 locations across the city by the time I was born. She never talked about the money. She wore the same church hat for a decade because she liked it and saw no reason to replace something that still worked fine. She didn't care what people thought of her bank account, and she never once made me feel small for not having one of my own. Every Sunday afternoon, for as long as I can remember, I drove to her house after church and we sat on her back porch, the one with the wind chimes she'd had since before I was born, and we talked about nothing important. Gospel music. Her stories about growing up down south, the neighbors. It didn't matter what we talked about. What mattered was that she looked forward to it, and so did I. She was the only person in my entire family who asked how I was really doing and actually waited to hear the answer. When she was diagnosed with congestive heart failure, the doctors said her body was simply wearing out after 78 years of hard work. And everything about our family cracked open in a way I wasn't prepared for. I remember the day she told me, sitting in that same chair on her porch, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had gone cold an hour earlier. She said it plainly, the way she said everything, no dramatics, no self-pity, just the facts laid out like a woman who had survived worse and intended to face this the same way. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there with her in silence until the sun went down, and that became the pattern for the rest of her life. Me, sitting with her, saying nothing, because sometimes there's nothing that needs saying. The hospital visits started 3 months later, fluid building around her heart that made her too weak to stand some days. Nights where her oxygen levels dropped, and the nurses would call whoever was listed as her emergency contact, which was me, because nobody else had bothered to put their name on the form. I would leave my shift, drive across town, and sit in a plastic chair beside her hospital bed until the sun came up, watching the monitors blink, listening to her breathe. My mother visited exactly twice in 14 months. The first time was for 20 minutes, and she spent most of it on her phone in the hallway taking a work call. The second time was because I called her crying, begging her to come see her own mother, and she showed up with a bouquet of grocery store flowers, stayed for 15 minutes, and left saying hospitals made her anxious. My father never came at all. He said hospitals reminded him too much of his own mother's death, and he couldn't handle it emotionally, as if his mother-in-law wasn't currently lying in a bed 20 minutes away, dying without him. Vanessa visited once, and even that visit felt like a performance rather than a presence. She walked in wearing a designer blazer, checked her phone twice within the first 5 minutes, and spent the entire time asking Grandma Ruth questions about the salon properties, about whether she'd updated her will recently, about what would happen to the buildings downtown. Grandma answered politely, the way she answered everything, but I saw her jaw tighten. I saw the exact moment she understood what that visit actually was. I was the one who learned the names of every nurse on the floor. I was the one who memorized her medication schedule so precisely that the staff started asking me instead of checking the chart. I was the one who held the basin when the fluid buildup made her sick, who adjusted her pillows at 3 a.m, who read her passages from her worn Bible because the familiar words seemed to calm her more than anything the doctors gave her. I never once thought about what any of this might mean for me afterward. I wasn't there for a payout. I was there because the alternative was letting her face the end of her life surrounded by strangers in scrubs. "You're the only one who comes, baby," she told me one night, her voice barely above a whisper, the hospital room dark except for the blue glow of the monitors. "Your mama calls sometimes. Your daddy sends flowers on my birthday. But you're the one who's actually here, Danielle. I won't forget that." I told her not to talk like that, like it mattered, like it needed to be said out loud. But she kept talking anyway, slower now, her breath catching between sentences. She talked about how she used to think building something for her family would bring them closer to her, how she'd worked herself half to death growing that salon business, only to realize somewhere along the way that most of them wanted what she had, not who she was. "Except you," she said. "You never once asked me for anything. There were nights I genuinely believed I might not see morning," she told me another time, gripping my hand tighter than her weakened body should have allowed. "And in those nights, the only sound in the room besides the machines was your breathing in that chair beside me, steady, patient, not going anywhere no matter how late it got. I need you to know I noticed every single one of those nights, even the ones you thought I slept straight through." She passed away on a Tuesday morning in late autumn, quietly, while I was asleep in the chair beside her bed, my hand still resting on hers. A nurse woke me gently and told me her heart had simply given out sometime before dawn. I called my mother from the hospital hallway, my voice cracking apart with every word, and she answered on the 4th ring sounding mildly inconvenienced, like I'd called to tell her a package hadn't arrived rather than that her own mother had just died. She said she'd let everyone know. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't ask if I needed anything. She hung up within 90 seconds, and I stood alone in that hospital hallway and cried harder than I had in years. The funeral was scheduled for the following week, held at a large church downtown with a choir loft and stained glass windows that Grandma Ruth would have found excessive, the kind of ostentatious display she'd spent her entire life avoiding. My mother insisted on it because, in her words, appearances mattered, and half the church community and the salon's longtime clients would be attending, and they needed to make a good impression. I remember thinking that even in death, my grandmother couldn't escape being used as a stage for someone else's image. I arrived early, hoping for a few quiet minutes before the crowd showed up, the same way I always arrived early to see her at the hospital. Instead, I found my family already there, clustered near the front pews in expensive black clothing, their voices low but unmistakably excited, the way people sound when they are discussing something they've been waiting a long time to discuss. I heard my father say the word estate. I heard my mother say something about the salon buildings and the property upstate. I heard Vanessa laughing quietly at something, actually laughing, at her own grandmother's funeral, before the woman had even been laid to rest. I found a seat near the back and stayed there through the entire service. The pastor spoke about Ruth's generosity, her faith, her tireless work ethic, and every word felt like it was describing a woman my family barely knew. My mother gave remarks about how close they had always been, how much she admired her mother's strength, and I sat there gripping the edge of the pew so hard my knuckles went pale, because I had watched that woman face death essentially alone except for me. And now my mother stood at a podium rewriting history in front of 200 people who didn't know any better. After the burial, everyone gathered at my parents' house for what they called a repast, though the mood in that living room felt closer to a business negotiation than a memorial. A lawyer named MS. Coleman arrived not long after, carrying a briefcase and a thick folder, and the moment she walked through the door, I watched my family's collective posture change, like predators catching a scent. "Danielle," my mother said, pulling me aside near the kitchen doorway, her voice dropping into that particular tone she used when she wanted something without technically asking for it. "I think it might be easier if you didn't sit in on the will reading. It's really a family matter, and we don't want things to feel awkward." I stared at her for a long moment, waiting for her to realize what she just said, waiting for some flicker of shame to cross her face. It never came. "She was my grandmother, too," I said quietly. "I think I have every right to be there." "Of course you do, technically," she said, in the exact tone people use when they are humoring someone they've already decided doesn't matter. "But let's be realistic, sweetheart. You two were close, sure, but Mama was a practical woman. She understood how these things work. There's no reason to make this more complicated than it needs to be." Vanessa overheard the tail end of it and wandered over, still holding a glass of wine, her heels clicking against the hardwood in a way that somehow made her look even more pleased with herself. "Yes, sis, maybe just head out. This part's for immediate family. No offense, but you know how it is." I wanted to leave right then. I wanted to walk out of that house and never come back, to let them have their meeting, and their money, and their performance of grief, and simply remove myself from all of it permanently. But something kept my feet planted on that hardwood floor. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was some quiet certainty building in the back of my mind that there was more to this story than any of them understood yet. "I'm staying," I said, and I walked past my mother into the living room where the rest of the family had already claimed the good seats. The room went silent when I sat down. My mother exchanged a look with my father. Vanessa rolled her eyes but said nothing further. Nobody wanted to make a scene in front of the lawyer, not yet anyway. "Before I begin, MS," Coleman said, settling into the armchair that had always been Ruth's favorite, "I want to explain that Ruth made some significant revisions to her estate plan roughly 10 months ago. She came to my office alone, without any family present, and asked that these changes remain confidential until this exact moment. A ripple of unease moved through the room. My father shifted in his seat. My mother's carefully composed expression cracked just slightly at the edges. 10 months ago, MS, Coleman continued. Your mother also asked that I read a personal letter aloud as part of this proceeding. She wrote it herself by hand during one of her hospital stays. She asked that it be read exactly as written, in full, regardless of how anyone in this room might react to it. She pulled a folded sheet of paper from a plain envelope, the handwriting on it visibly shaky, the kind of unsteady penmanship that comes from a body failing while the mind inside it remains completely clear. The room fell into a silence so complete, I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, the same clock she used to wind every Sunday while I sat at her kitchen table doing homework as a kid. To my family, MS, Coleman Reed, her voice steady and measured. If you are hearing this, then I am gone, and there are things I need to say now that I never found the courage to say while I was still breathing. She paused, glancing briefly around the room before continuing. For most of my life, I believed that if I worked hard enough, built enough, provided enough, my family would understand what actually mattered between us. I believed love could be assumed, that it didn't need proving, that it would simply exist because we shared the same blood. I was wrong, and I understood that too late, somewhere in a hospital bed, staring at an empty chair beside me more nights than I care to count. My mother's hand tightened visibly around the stem of her wine glass. Nobody moved. In the final 14 months of my life, I was in and out of hospitals more than I was ever at home. I needed help I was too proud to ask for out loud. I needed someone to simply be present, especially on the nights when the pain was bad enough that sleep felt impossible, and the fear of what was coming kept me staring at the ceiling until dawn. I felt my chest tighten. I looked down at my hands, not wanting to see the faces of the people sitting around me. Patricia, the letter continued, using my mother's name directly. You visited me twice in 14 months. The first visit lasted 20 minutes, most of which you spent on a phone call about a client account. The second visit came only after Danielle called you in tears, and even then you stayed only long enough to hand me flowers from a gas station and tell me hospitals made you uncomfortable. I want you to understand something. I was uncomfortable too. I was dying. My mother's face had gone the color of the tablecloth beneath the folder in the lawyer's hands. James, the letter went on, addressing my father. You did not visit me a single time in 14 months. Not once. You told people it was because hospitals reminded you too much of your own mother's passing, and I understand grief affects people differently. But I want you to know that I noticed. Every day I noticed the empty chair beside my bed, and I understood exactly what it meant. My father stared at the floor, his jaw working silently, saying nothing. Vanessa, the letter continued, and my sister's smug expression finally began to slip. You visited once, for less than 20 minutes, and you spent that time asking me about my salon properties and whether I had recently updated my will. I answered your questions honestly because that is who I am, but I want you to know that I understood exactly what that visit was, and it was not a visit to see your grandmother. Vanessa set her wine glass down harder than necessary, the liquid sloshing over the rim onto the coffee table, but she didn't speak. There was only one person who sat beside that hospital bed night after night for 14 months. MS, Coleman Reed, her voice softening slightly. Only one person who learned my medication schedule better than the nurses, who held the basin when the fluid made me sick, who read to me from my own worn Bible because she knew the familiar words helped me sleep. Only one person who never once, in 14 months, asked me a single question about money. She looked up from the letter for just a moment, and her eyes met mine across the room. That person is my granddaughter, Danielle. The room erupted into a kind of stunned, breathless silence that somehow felt louder than actual noise would have. My mother's mouth opened slightly and stayed that way. My father's face had gone completely pale. Vanessa was staring at the coffee table like the wine stains spreading across it had suddenly become the most fascinating thing in the world. MS. Coleman continued reading. Danielle never once asked me for anything in all those months. She came because she wanted to be there, not because she was waiting for something in return. She sat with me during the worst nights of my life without complaint, without resentment, without ever making me feel like a burden. She gave me something none of the rest of you gave me in those final 14 months. Her time, freely, without expectation of anything in return. I felt tears building behind my eyes, and this time I didn't try to stop them from falling. I know some of you will be angry when you hear what I have decided. The letter continued. I know some of you will say it isn't fair, that Danielle didn't earn this the way the rest of you believe you earned it, simply by being born into this family. But I ask each of you to sit with one honest question before you let that anger take over. What did you actually give me in those final months? What did you sacrifice? Where were you when I needed you most? And why wasn't the answer simple enough to say out loud right now? My father's face had gone rigid, unreadable. My mother was staring at the floor, her wine glass now completely forgotten in her hand. For that reason, MS. Coleman read, her voice slowing to give proper weight to each word. I am leaving the majority of my estate to my granddaughter, Danielle. This includes the house on Willowbrook Lane, all 3 salon locations, the rental property downtown, and the bulk of my financial holdings, totaling approximately $3.8 million. The number hung in the air like something physical, something everyone in that room could suddenly feel pressing against their chest. To my children and my other grandchild, I leave $100,000 each, along with my sincere hope that this gift encourages genuine reflection on what family is actually supposed to mean, rather than what a bank statement happens to say. MS Coleman folded the letter and set it gently on the coffee table in front of her. There is one final line, she said quietly. Ruth specifically asked that this be read separately after a pause. She picked the paper back up. Danielle, if you are listening to this, I want you to know that I saw you. Every Sunday, every hospital visit, every quiet night in that plastic chair beside my bed. I saw all of it, and I never once took it for granted, even when I couldn't find the words to say so at the time. This isn't charity, and it isn't pity. This is simply the truth being told, finally, out loud, the way it always should have been. Thank you for loving an old woman who had nothing left to offer you except love in return. The silence that followed felt like it stretched on for an hour, though it was probably closer to 10 seconds. Then my mother's voice cut through it, sharp and shaking. This is absurd, she said, rising from her chair so quickly it scraped hard against the hardwood floor. She was sick. She was on heavy medication for months. She wasn't thinking clearly when she made these changes, and everyone in this room knows it. Ruth was evaluated by 2 independent physicians at the time these changes were made. MS. Coleman replied calmly, without missing a beat, as though she had anticipated this exact reaction weeks in advance. Both evaluations confirmed she was of entirely sound mind. Copies are included in the estate file should you wish to review them yourselves. This is insane, Vanessa snapped, standing up so fast her chair nearly tipped backward. She gets everything just because she showed up a few times. We're her actual daughter, her actual granddaughters. She showed up every week for 14 months, I said quietly, and it was the first thing I'd said since the letter began. My voice shook, but I kept going anyway. You showed up once for 20 minutes to ask her about her salon properties. Where were you the other 409 days? Vanessa's jaw tightened, but she had no answer for that, and everyone in that room knew it, including her. You don't get to stand there and act wounded. I continued, feeling something inside me finally break loose after years of staying quiet, of swallowing every insult, of pretending it didn't sting to be the invisible one at every family gathering. None of you visited her. None of you sat with her. None of you even called most weeks, and now you want to act like something was stolen from you. You always thought you were better than us, my mother said, her voice trembling with something that wasn't quite grief and wasn't quite guilt, but sat somewhere uncomfortably close to both. Playing the devoted granddaughter, making the rest of us look bad in comparison. I wasn't trying to make anyone look bad, I said, and I meant every word of it. I was trying to be there for a dying woman. That's all this ever was for me. My father finally spoke, his voice low and controlled in a way that somehow felt more unsettling than either of the outbursts before it. We will be contesting this will. I hope you understand that. No court in this state is going to uphold something that disinherits an entire family in favor of one grandchild. MS. Coleman, entirely unbothered, reached into her briefcase and produced a second folder. You are welcome to try, she said evenly, though I should mention that Ruth anticipated this exact possibility as well. The will includes a no contest clause. Any beneficiary who formally challenges this will in court automatically forfeits their inheritance in its entirety, including the $100,000 each of you has currently been left. I'd strongly recommend consulting your own attorneys before making any decisions, but I can assure you, Ruth was extremely thorough. The room fell quiet again, though this time the silence carried a different weight entirely, the sound of anger recalculating itself into caution, of greed suddenly having to negotiate with risk. I stood up slowly, my legs unsteady beneath me. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel the satisfaction I might have expected walking into that room an hour earlier. Mostly I felt hollow and tired and strangely sad, like a truth had finally been spoken that none of us could ever unspeak again, no matter how badly some of us might want to. I don't want to fight about any of this, I said, looking around the room at faces that had once felt like family and now felt like strangers wearing familiar clothing. She didn't leave me this because she wanted a war between us. She left it to me because she trusted me. I'm not going to turn this into something uglier than it already is just because the rest of you are angry. How generous of you, my mother said bitterly, though the words came out weaker than she probably intended them to. I didn't respond to that. There wasn't anything left to say that would change how she felt about me, and honestly, I was tired of trying. I left my parents' house that evening and drove straight to Grandma Ruth's place on Willowbrook Lane, the house that now technically belonged to me, though it didn't feel real yet, wouldn't feel real for a long time. I sat on the back porch in her old rocking chair, the wind chimes still swaying gently in the evening breeze, and I let myself cry properly for the first time since she died. Not because of the money, not because of the fight with my family. I cried because I missed her, plainly and simply, the way you miss someone whose absence leaves a hole shaped exactly like them. A few days later, going through her things, I found a small, worn Bible tucked into her nightstand drawer, pages soft from decades of use. Tucked between the pages near the back, dated only a few months before she died, I found a folded note in her shaky handwriting that stopped me completely. Danielle came by the hospital again today, it read. Sat with me for hours even though I slept through most of it. She doesn't know I noticed her reading to me while I dozed off. That girl has more heart than this entire family combined, and she doesn't even realize it. Need to make sure she knows what she means to me, one way or another, before it's too late. I closed the Bible and held it against my chest for a long time, sitting alone in that quiet house, letting the silence settle around me the way it used to when she was still alive to share it with me. I also found, tucked behind the Bible, a small stack of photographs I didn't know existed. Pictures Grandma Ruth had apparently asked one of the nurses to take on her phone and print for her. Quiet moments neither of us had noticed being captured at the time. Me asleep in the plastic chair with my hand still resting near hers on the blanket. Me reading to her from that same worn Bible, the leather cover cracked with age. Me laughing at something she'd said, my head tilted back, unaware that anyone was watching closely enough to want to remember it. On the back of one, in her shaking handwriting, she had written a single line. This is what love actually looks like. I sat on the floor of that bedroom for a long time holding those photographs, understanding for the first time just how closely she had been paying attention, even on the nights I assumed she was too exhausted to notice anything at all. In the weeks that followed, my family mostly stopped speaking to me altogether. My mother sent one final message calling me manipulative and ungrateful, which felt almost darkly funny given everything that had actually happened. Vanessa blocked my number entirely. My father simply disappeared from my life, the way he'd always been more absent than present anyway, even long before any of this began. I didn't fight any of them on it. I didn't try to defend myself or explain or beg for a forgiveness I hadn't actually done anything wrong to need. I used part of the inheritance to pay off the last of my student loans, quit my home health aide job, and finally finished the nursing degree I'd been chipping away at for 6 years. I kept the house on Willowbrook Lane, and some evenings I still sit on that back porch listening to the wind chimes, letting the quiet settle around me the way it used to when she was still alive. I also kept the 3 salon locations, running rather than selling them off the way an accountant friend of mine suggested I probably should. I kept on the longtime stylists Grandma Ruth had always spoken fondly of, women who had worked those chairs for over a decade and genuinely mourned her when she passed, more visibly than most of my own relatives had at the funeral. Running those salons taught me things about her I never fully understood while she was alive. The quiet discipline it must have taken to build something from absolutely nothing as a single mother. The patience required to keep showing up at those doors every single morning for 40 years, without ever once bragging about it to the people who should have been proud of her for it. Occasionally, I still catch myself reaching for my phone to call her about something small. A funny customer at the salon, a gospel song I know she would have wanted to hear, and then remembering all over again that the call will never actually connect. Grief works strangely like that. It doesn't leave in one clean motion. It just quietly rearranges itself around the shape of your life until you learn to carry it without noticing the weight quite as much. Sometimes, when the salon is quiet on a slow afternoon, one of the older stylists will mention something Grandma Ruth used to say, some small phrase or habit I'd half forgotten, and for a moment it feels like she's still standing in that doorway, still watching, still quietly noticing more than anyone realized. I've come to believe that's the only kind of inheritance that actually matters in the end, not the number written on a piece of paper, but the small proof that someone paid enough attention to your life to remember exactly how you lived it. So I'll leave you with the same question I still don't have a clean answer for myself. If you had been in my family's position, watching wealth you assumed was yours slip away to someone you'd spent years quietly looking down on, would you have been able to admit the truth about your own absence? Or would you have done exactly what they did and blamed the person who actually showed up instead of ever facing the person staring back at you in the mirror?